I love this topic. I think unfortunately there's a lot of sales training out there that is really great information, but not for B2B agency sales. And so the number one mistake that I see agency owners make is not so much like things that they say, but it's more about how they say it. The goal of a sales call, especially selling B2B, is not to make friends. It's not to even give value. A lot of agency owners go into sales calls thinking, I'm going to blow this person away with how smart I am and how fancy my offer is and how cool my pillars are of my pitch. When in reality, all business owners care about is working with somebody who really knows what they're doing, an expert. And so the biggest mistake that I see is people go in trying to make friends when they need to go in trying to showcase their expertise through expert level questions, challenging the prospects to make sure that they actually can help them. And it's a very different energy. It's an energy of being an authority on the call versus a friend on the call. And I think that's the number one thing that agency owners make mistakes on, and it costs them a lot of money in the process. So that's the first thing I fix when I work with agencies.
Yeah, I didn't know you would say, like, I didn't think you would say that actually. And now I'm curious to understand a bit more, because, well, for context also, I have been on a sales call with you, right? When I wanted to join AFA or go to the event, the agency founders event, right, live in Nashville in January. I did a call with you and actually you closed me, right, to the VIP package, which is the most expensive one. And I felt like super at ease in the call. It was just like a very easy process and it was fun and cool. But I'm curious to, kind of dive behind or open the curtains now and understand what frameworks like do you usually like to apply in sales calls?
Amazing. Yeah. So frameworks for me is everything in a sales process. And so if you kind of watch my content and get to know me a little bit, I talk a lot about this and it probably gets a little bit annoying at times, but I treat sales like an SOP. Just like you would have operations and SOPs in the back end when it comes to fulfillment, client management, onboarding. Sales is no different. Sales is more of I got this a great quote from a friend of mine, Corey, but sales is more of a science than it is an art. And I think a lot of people treat it as this thing where it's like, oh, it's all about human connection, which it is, but we need to have a framework in place to follow so that we can create consistency. The biggest part which makes agencies successful in the sales space specifically, or closing space specifically for their agencies, is being able to close deals consistently over long periods of time. That's the difference between having a $1 million a month agency and having a $200K a month agency, is being able to close consistently over years and years and years. And so for me, what I really focus on is this concept of building a framework within your sales process, meaning everything is accounted for and happens the same way every single time. And so for me on my calls and what I teach is I actually have like a framework that I follow on a call that covers all of the key areas that I want to know about somebody's business, at the same time covers all the potential objections. And so, for example, talking about what are you looking for in an agency? What happened with the last agency you worked with? And that gives me a really clear idea of like what they're looking for and also what they're not looking for, so that in my pitch, I can position myself as the agency that they're really needing and looking for, but also allows me to overcome any objections around what they want or don't want. And I do that around basically every aspect of any business that you're working in. So I have a framework for how I start my calls with what I say and how I say it. I have a framework for the discovery of how I ask questions, what I say, how I say it. And then I have a framework for our pitch and a framework for our objection handling. And the beautiful thing about this is it allows us to be able to actually test during sales. So for example, if you get an objection, you actually can now go back and look and go, hey, I missed this section of my framework, which is why I got that objection. I didn't dig enough into their finances and their profit margins, so this is why I'm getting a price objection. That was on me. Now my next call, I can go back and fix that, and I can go deeper in my price qualifications, which allows me to not get that objection next time. And it's this really great process so that we can actually kind of keep our own selves accountable and make adjustments on the fly instead of making the same mistake for months without realizing it because there's nobody watching your calls or keeping you accountable.